At 11:30 on a Tuesday, my wife set a black overnight bag on our kitchen counter and asked for a one-night hall pass before we started trying for a baby. I said yes. Then I added a rule. If you check into that hotel with him, I told her, our marriage checks out the second the door clicks. She blinked. The silk nightgown I'd never seen slid into the bag like a signed confession. Most men yell. I don't. I build. Cabinets, fences, boundaries. So I drove her to her parents, handed her the toothbrush she forgot, and gave her exactly what she asked for. One night. But here's the part she didn't see coming. I wasn't waiting at home. While she chased a fantasy, I started the clock. On a plan. 8 years of emails, a town that runs on rumors, and a tech bro who thinks a Tesla is armor. One night? Deal. Question is, who wakes up with nothing? I live in a Midwestern town where the wind carries gossip faster than the mail. Our place is a one-story with a tired porch swing and a maple that dumps leaves like bills in October. My Ford F-150 knows every pothole between the lumberyard and our driveway. Most mornings I sand edges in the garage and brew coffee in the same dented pot I've used since my 20s. The house smells like cedar shavings and laundry soap. Life here is simple on purpose. Mow on Saturdays, burgers on the grill, church potluck when Martha, my mother, reminds me. Neighbors wave more than they talk. That quiet always suited me. I like routine. I like the way a straight board answers when you square it. Screws bite, hinges line up. You measure twice, you cut once, you move on. Tuesday nights are leftovers and a game on low. Nothing dramatic, nothing to see. Until one Tuesday night put a black bag on our counter and a fire in my chest. Lauren and I met at a 4th of July barbecue behind the high school. She laughed at my muddy boots, then stole my soda and my attention in the same breath. 8 years later, the laugh is quieter, the silence is longer. We still split groceries and crack jokes about the neighbor's plastic flamingos, but the touch on the shoulder lingers less. It's not one big fight. It's 1,000 small shrugs. The phone at dinner, the late nights, finishing a deck plan, or fixing a spreadsheet. The way we both say, I'm fine, like we mean, I'm tired. I work with wood because wood tells the truth. It warps in humidity, groans when you force it, sings when you find the grain. Marriage should be like that, honest, even when it hurts. Lately, ours felt like veneer, pretty until you scratch it. I kept telling myself we were in a slow season. Then I realized seasons change for a reason, and storms don't ask permission. That Tuesday, 11:30 p.m., the kitchen light buzzed like a fly in a jar. Lauren set a black overnight bag on the counter. Canvas, new, I'd never seen it. She slid in a silk nightgown I didn't recognize and a small bottle of perfume that smelled like trouble. Sharp, expensive, not the kind she wears to the office. My beer tasted warm. Somewhere down the block, a porch light snapped on, then off. I'm a man who notices details, the zipper teeth, the way her hands moved too fast, the way she didn't meet my eyes. Tools on my garage wall hang where my father taught me. Everything in its place. That bag didn't belong. The room felt tilted, like the floor had a slope I'd never seen. My heart didn't race. It slowed. I set the bottle down, wiped the ring it left, and asked the question you ask when you already know you won't like the answer. Going somewhere? She didn't look at me. Jack, we need to talk. 4 words any married man knows like a smoke alarm at 2 a.m. I leaned on the doorway and crossed my arms, paint on my sleeves like fingerprints from a life I chose. We've had talks about budgets, in-laws, and the thermostat. This wasn't that. Her voice was too careful. Her breath took the long way out. Okay, I said, keeping my tone even. In my shop, I keep a busted chair I never fixed. It reminds me that not everything wants saving. Lauren brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and finally met my eyes. Green, sharp, not soft. She wasn't building a bridge. She was clearing a path. The refrigerator hummed, then clicked off. The house went quiet in a way I felt in my teeth. I nodded at the bag. Say it. If we were going to break something, we might as well stop pretending we were polishing it. She took a breath like she was diving. I want a deal, she said. One night to live out a fantasy before we start trying for a baby. The words floated in the air like they were waiting to be swatted. I didn't yell. Yelling makes people dig in. I let the sentence land. One night, a hall pass, dressed in grown-up language. I thought about the crib we'd talked about and the rocking chair I'd started carving in the garage. I thought about promises made in a church with bad air conditioning and good pie. Honesty, she added, almost defensive. I'm being honest. I stared at the knot in the butcher block counter and felt something cold settle in my gut. She wanted permission so her conscience would stay clean. That's not honesty. That's paperwork. I set the beer aside. When I finally answered, my voice sounded like a level finding center. You're asking me to co-sign your exit, I said, and call it fair. A man knows the exact second a house stops feeling like his. It's not when the couch walks out or the keys change hands. It's a colder thing. It slides under the door and sits at your table like a guest who never leaves. I thought about the mornings we used to race to the shower and the nights we fell asleep mid-movie. I thought about the toolbox my dad gave me when we moved in, how I promised to fix what breaks. This felt different. Not a leaky faucet, a foundation crack, the kind you hide with paint until the wall bulges. My heart did a math I didn't like. One night, before a baby, equals a lifetime of doubt. Lauren waited, arms folded, daring me to be the kind of man who says no. I have said no to bad lumber and bad loans. This no had a new weight. If that's what you want, I said, then say the name. She set her jaw. Ethan Blake. I knew the name without the need to Google. Tall guy at the coffee place downtown who wears a watch that blinds you at noon and talks about moving the needle, like he invented the phrase. Tesla in the corner spot. A laugh that sounds like a microphone feeding back. The kind of man who thinks the world is a ladder and he's already on the second to last rung. My throat went dry. Not because he scared me, but because the picture snapped into focus. This wasn't a dare. This was a plan. How long? I asked. She shrugged. A few months. Talking. Mostly. Mostly is a word people use when they want you to stop asking. My pulse stayed steady. I looked at the clock, then at the bag, then at the woman I promised forever. Okay, I said, calm, clear. Get your coat. Her eyes widened. She hadn't planned for cooperation, only for guilt. The truck started on the first turn, like it always does. Country radio mumbled a song about whiskey and leaving. Lauren held the bag in her lap and stared straight ahead. Streetlights stitched gold lines across the windshield. I didn't lecture. I drove. Past the diner where we split pancakes on our first anniversary, past the park where we almost adopted a dog and then didn't because it felt like a preview of something we weren't ready for. Her parents' porch light glowed like a warning buoy. I parked, put the truck in neutral, and let the engine settle. She turned to speak, but I reached into the console and handed her the travel toothbrush she'd forgotten. Wouldn't want him to think you don't take care of yourself, I said. Not cruel, just factual. She blinked hard. I opened her door. Cold air rolled in and took some of the kitchen smell with it. Go live your fantasy, Lauren, I said. Let's see what it buys. She stepped onto the driveway and hesitated. You're serious? She asked. Dead serious, I said. But hear me and hear me clean. She stood there, bag strap twisting in her fingers. I spoke like I do when I set a post. Slow, square, final. If you check into that hotel with him, if a door closes behind you, our marriage ends the moment it clicks. No second chances. No, we were on a break. No rewinding the tape. Her face lost color. I wasn't raging. I was drawing a line in chalk and handing her the eraser. She looked at the porch, then at me, then at the road. Somewhere a dog barked at nothing. I put the truck in gear. One night, I said, no questions from me. But when the sun comes up, there's no us to come back to. She opened her mouth, closed it, and stepped back. I drove off without checking the mirror, because some turns you take with both hands on the wheel. The house felt bigger without Lauren's voice in it. I set my keys on the hook and the clink echoed like I dropped a wrench down a well. On the mantel, our wedding photo watched me. 2 kids outside a church with bad air conditioning and better pie, smiling like the future was just a longer aisle. I lifted the frame and saw a fine line of dust where it had been. We were clean on the surface, gritty underneath. I set it back and walked the rooms like a night watchman checking doors. Bedroom, guest room, bath. Everything in place. Nothing right. In the garage, the rocking chair I'd started for a baby we hadn't made yet sat half-carved, curved arms waiting for a back that might never come. I ran a thumb over the grain and felt it grab my skin. In a small town, wood and marriage share a rule. Ignore a crack, and you earn the break. I wasn't ignoring anything anymore. My phone buzzed on the counter. Lauren, we need to talk about tonight. Then, you left me at my parents'. That was childish. I stared at the screen the way you stare at a loose step, knowing if you rush it, you'll fall. I typed nothing. Silence is a tool if you know how to use it. When you stop reacting, people reveal their plan. Another buzz. Can we be adults? Adults pay what they owe. I put the phone face down and poured the last of the coffee, cold from the pot I never washed soon enough. I thought about men I know, guys who wish they'd paused before firing back, guys who signed papers with hands still shaking. A minute passed, then another. The phone lit up again, and again, like a cheap neon that won't quit. I let it burn. You can't fix a leak while the water's running. First, you find the valve, then you shut it tight. Tonight, I tightened it. Brittany called, her name popping up with a selfie she'd taken on our porch last summer. I answered on the fourth ring. Jack, thank God. Lauren is a mess. Her tone had too much theater in it for midnight. Ask your friend, I said. She huffed. She told me you abandoned her. That's not you. People love to tell you who you are when it suits them. Did she tell you about her deal? Silence. Then a cough. She said you both understood it was a boundary exercise. I nearly laughed. Brittany, is your phone on speaker? Another beat. No. Good. Then hear me clean. I won't be the villain in her story just because she needs one. Brittany softened, just a hair. She's scared, Jack. Of consequences, I said. Different fear. She tried one more line, about counseling, about cooling off. We'll talk when I'm ready, I said, and hung up. If she was a sounding board, she'd just heard a flat note. Lauren's laptop sat on the kitchen island, lid down, cord in. Wedding day password. She never changed it. I stood there a long minute, because this is the part no one brags about, the cold work of knowing. I opened it. The hinge squeaked like it didn't want to help. Browser history held more dates than a church bulletin, hotel searches, prefix menus, little red hearts on reviews for places we've never been. A Gmail I didn't recognize, forwarding to her Facebook. People think secrets live in shadows, but they leave crumbs in plain sight. I clicked, scrolled, clicked. My jaw got tight enough to crack a walnut. It wasn't just one night, it was planning, and planning plans for when plans turned messy. Screenshots, schedules, a message draft titled, If He Asks. Maybe she thought I'd huff and puff, then fall asleep in front of the TV. She forgot I build for a living. We measure, we mark, and once we see the line, we cut true. The emails stretched back 3, maybe 4 months. Quiet threads that started with work chatter and turned into late-night confessions spelled like they'd swallowed wine. I feel alive, she wrote. He gets me. Every affair writes the same poem, just with different nouns. There were hotel names, a restaurant 2 towns over, and a playlist titled Out of Office. She wasn't improvising. She was rehearsing. My mind went to a buddy's advice when his back gave out. Pain makes you honest. I felt the ache settle low, not sharp, not screaming, just heavy, like wet lumber that still needs carrying. I scrolled farther. Before a baby, she'd typed, as if a child could be grafted onto a lie and grow straight. In our vows, we promised better and worse. I meant it. But worse isn't a hall pass. It's a test of spine. I closed my eyes, counted to 5, and kept reading. Because once you lift the floorboard, you check every joist. Brittany and Lauren had their own thread, freer with the claws. I've framed walls that bow less than those messages. Jack won't push back, Brittany wrote. He never does. Lauren replied with fire emojis and a line that hit harder than any insult. He's safe. That's the problem. Safe is what you want in a bridge. In a husband, it apparently gets boring. Another message. If he resists, I'll cry. He always melts. I didn't. Not this time. I read on. They joked about my shirts, about my hands, about the way I rinse paintbrushes like it's a ritual. They turned the life we built into a punchline. That was the mean part. Not the sex talk, not the hotels, but the small meanness of people who think they're better than the steady things that hold their world up. I let the sting wash over and out. Then I saved everything. If words were lumber, I had a full rack, and I knew where each board would go. Ethan's emails were neat, like a resume, bullet points, links, reservations, a tone that said he was doing her a favor by existing. He used phrases like no drama and clean exit, like human hearts were leases you could break if you found better square footage. He wanted assurances. She gave them. He'll understand, she wrote. He always does. They traded calendars. They traded playlists. They traded a version of me that sounded like a dull tool, noisy, slow, unsafe. I've been called worse by better men, but this was different. This was a story built without me, for me to live in anyway. He dropped a hotel confirmation. She dropped a thank you with a winking face. Practical, efficient, cruel. I imagined his shiny watch catching bar light while he said my name like a task he'd already finished. It didn't make my hands shake. It made them steady. If Ethan had a blueprint, then so did I. And mine used stronger screws. Printers don't get enough credit. When you need the truth to stop wiggling, you put it on paper. I printed everything. Dates, times, threads. Pages slid out warm, curling at the edge like they wanted to keep a secret. I stacked them by type. Brittany, hotels, Ethan, if he asks. A contractor taught me to label every bundle so a stranger can find his way around your job. I wrote clean headings with a black Sharpie. It wasn't revenge, it was record-keeping. If you've ever disputed a bill or argued with insurance, you know the rule. Ink wins. I slid the stacks into a manila folder and tucked it in the bottom drawer under tax returns and the title to the truck. My phone buzzed again. I let it. On the back of my hand, sawdust stuck where sweat had dried. For years, I fixed squeaks and leaks before Lauren noticed them. Tonight, I tightened a bolt she never thought I'd touch. The folder closed with a flat, final sound. Morning brought the kind of light that makes dust honest. I drove to my mother's apartment, second floor, no elevator, a place she chose on purpose to keep herself spry. Martha poured coffee into chipped mugs and lit a candle to hide the fact she still smokes sometimes. "What did Princess do now?" she asked, half a smile, half a warning. I told her the bag, the deal, the emails. She didn't interrupt. Moms from her generation don't waste advice on the first draft. When I finished, she stared at the steam and said, "Your father would have punched someone and bragged about it." Then she smirked. "He was a good man with bad ideas." I laughed because I miss him. "So what do I do?" She took my hand, turned it palm up, and tapped the calluses. "You've built your whole life slow and sturdy. Don't switch to sloppy now." The candle flickered. My phone buzzed on the table. She slid it back to me. "Let it ring." Martha stubbed the candle and leaned in like she was about to share a recipe. "Listen, Jack. Anger is a match. It burns quick and blinds you. You need a lantern." She pointed at my folder. "You've got light. Use it wisely. No yelling in bars, no midnight speeches, no posts online." She took a sip, winced at the heat. "You make her choose without giving her a show. And if she chooses wrong, you make sure the people she recruited know what they signed up for." That sounded colder than I felt, but Martha has lived through enough to call things by their names. "And Ethan?" I asked. She smiled thin. "A man who needs to be the hero will find a way to rescue himself. He just needs permission." I hugged her, and she swatted my shoulder like I was still 10. On the way out, she added, "Son, consequences aren't cruelty, they're clarity." I drove home with a plan and steadier hands. On the way back, I drove the long route, the one that threads our old landmarks like beads. The high school track where we walked after arguments, counting laps instead of hurts. The diner with the corner booth where she tried my fries and said she wasn't hungry. The little church with the broken AC where we promised hard things and blew on the program to make a breeze. None of it felt like a movie flashback, neat and rounded. It felt like a map with coffee stains, places we meant to return to and didn't. I remembered how we used to leave notes on sticky pads. Buy milk. Love you. Back soon. And how those turned into calendar reminders. Love can become logistics if you let it. My dad once told me that a good fence isn't about keeping people out. It's about keeping promises in. I pulled into our driveway and stared at the gate I'd built. It was straight. It was strong. It was locked. Tommy was loading 2x10s into his bed when I rolled into the lumber yard. He's the kind of friend who shakes your hand like he's testing your grip and asks how your mother is without looking at his phone. "You look like a man who slept on a sofa he didn't own," he said. I told him the short version. He set the board down like it weighed more than pine. "You want me to swing?" he asked, half kidding, half not. "No swinging," I said. "I need information, not a scene." Tommy scratched his beard. "Ethan Blake? Crypto haircut? Watch you can see from space?" I nodded. He snorted. "Friday nights he preaches at O'Malley's about disruption and tries to buy freshman dignity with cocktails." I didn't smile. Tommy sobered. "You sure you want to walk into that?" I looked at the stacks of wood behind him. "I've spent my life turning chaos into square. I can handle a bar." He nodded. "Then I'm on call." I asked Tommy for specifics because habits tell the truth. 9:15, he said. He parks crooked like the lines offend him, orders something with a citrus peel and says the word portfolio loud enough for people to hear. I pictured the scene, the neon clock, the clink of glass, the way the door breathes cold air every time it opens. "Does he ever bring company?" "Tries," Tommy said. "But girls who grew up around here can smell a rented personality." I tucked that away. "What about the hotel?" Tommy named 1-2 towns over with soft towels and hard lighting. We both knew it. "You going tonight?" he asked. "Soon," I said. "When he least expects a blue-collar welcome." Tommy grinned. "You want me there?" "Not in the first act," I said, "but keep your phone close." He patted his pocket. "Close as a pocket knife." I left with a short board for a quick fix at home and a timeline for a longer fix in town. That evening I drove past O'Malley's without stopping, just to feel the rhythm. The open sign hummed red. 2 regulars smoked under the awning like they were guarding a secret. Inside, the jukebox would be stuck on old country and 80s rock, the kind of soundtrack that forgives you for knowing every word. I watched the door open, close, open. If you've ever scouted a job site, you know that daylight tells one story and night tells another. I pictured Ethan easing onto a bar stool, flashing that watch, testing lines like a fisherman who never learned the lake. I pictured the bartender's patience thinning. I didn't walk in. Not yet. I wanted him comfortable. Routine set, radar down. In the rear view, the bar shrank and the plan grew. People think revenge is a fireball. It's not. It's a thermostat. Small clicks, steady heat. I turned toward home, past the hotel he'd booked, and counted parking spots. Every plan needs a clean exit and a cleaner entrance. Back in my kitchen, I laid the folder on the table like blueprints and wrote 3 headings on a yellow pad. Ethan, Lauren, town. Under Ethan, I listed Friday night, O'Malley's, Tesla, hotel. Under Lauren, I listed parents, Brittany, texts, likely panic. Under town, I wrote names that carry weight. Mrs. Dorsey with her tomatoes, the deli owner who sees everything, the neighbor who walks at dawn. Not to weaponize them. To respect the way small places work. Truth rides faster when it borrows familiar legs. I set a simple rule for myself. No shouting, no threats, no damage I wouldn't sign my name to. I'd show up where lies feel crowded and let the room breathe. I'd give Ethan a choice he'd think he made. I'd give Lauren the mirror she asked for without knowing it. The clock over the stove ticked, steady as a nail gun. I turned off the kitchen light and left the folder in the dark. Tomorrow, the lantern comes on. Friday night, I parked 2 blocks from O'Malley's so I could walk off the nerves. The neon sign hummed like a tired beehive, and the door breathed cold air every time it opened. Inside, the room was half sawdust, half spilled beer, pool cues clacking, a game on mute, old songs forgiving old mistakes. I chose the corner stool with a view of the door and the mirror behind the taps. That mirror matters. It tells you who's watching whom. The bartender slid me a long neck without asking. Small towns keep tabs without receipts. I didn't check my phone. I watched the clock over the bar hit 9:14 and then 9:15, like a nail gun counting down. When you've framed houses, you learn timing. You brace first, then you lift. At 9:16, a gust of cold rode in on Cologne and confidence. The plan didn't start when I walked in. It started when the door opened, and the room turned to admire itself. Ethan arrived polished enough to leave fingerprints on your memory. Dark jeans that probably had a publicist, a shirt rolled to show the watch, hair messy in the way that takes an hour. He stood there like a commercial, scanning for an audience. People like him always forget that regulars grade on a curve. He parked on a bar stool, ordered something with appeal, and turned his shoulders so the room could see him see it. I stayed small in the mirror, like a cabinet hinge, quiet, necessary, ignored. The bartender gave him the once-over he saves for tourists in trouble. Ethan sipped, puckered, and checked his phone like applause should be arriving. He didn't clock me. He didn't have to. I wasn't there to shine. I was there to hold shape. Another minute passed. The jukebox coughed an old Hank Williams tune. Ethan smiled at his reflection. Mirrors can be kind until they introduce you to the rest of us. He went fishing. First cast, a brunette teacher look, wedding band tan line, polite smile. He opened with money talk, market swings, smart bets, the way people brag about weather they didn't control. She nodded the way Midwesterners do when we're already leaving. 10 minutes later, she took a call and never returned. Second cast, a nurse with tired eyes and sneakers. He aimed for charm, hit smug, strike two. Third, two friends splitting fries. He slid in like a coupon and got the check instead. Confidence is useful. Arrogance squeaks like a loose stare. I sipped and remembered my father telling me how men lose tools, not by dropping them, but by setting them down where they don't belong. Ethan's smile thinned, the way paint does when it's been stirred too much. He checked his phone again, as if validation might be delivered curbside. It didn't come. The room wasn't cruel. It was simply immune. That's worse, for a man who needs applause. I took my beer and the kind of breath you take before a heavy lift. 2 steps, then a third, not rushed. Seat free? I asked. He glanced up, weighed me in a heartbeat. Boots, calluses, quiet, and nodded. The bartender set another long neck between us, an accidental peace offering. I'm Jack, I said. Ethan, he answered, voice casual enough to squeak. We watched a replay of a home run neither of us cared about. Small talk is a tool. You use it to loosen bolts before you turn them. New in town? I asked. A year, he said, like tenure. He asked what I did. I build things that don't fall down, I said. He grinned like he'd heard a riddle with no punchline. Silence sat with us for a count of 5. Then I turned, met his eyes in the mirror, and offered a line nobody expects from the husband. Thanks, I said. You did me a favor. His grip tightened on the glass. He tipped his head, confused. A favor? I kept my voice even, warm like a shop light. Woke me up, I said. Made me face what I didn't want to. 8 years can turn into autopilot if you let it. He blinked, wary now, like a man who suspects there's a second step on the porch. Look, I added, I'm not here for a scene. No shouting, no swinging. I came to say I see the story now. He tried on a smile that didn't fit. What story is that? The one where a marriage is already dying and somebody finally turns on the lights. He looked for the trap and didn't find it. That's the thing about gratitude. Used right, it disarms without lying. The bartender drifted away, relieved we weren't going to make her mop speeches. I raised my bottle once, a small salute. You helped, even if you didn't mean to. He swallowed. The word he couldn't find was why. He finally asked it. What do you mean? I spun my bottle, watched condensation draw a ring, and answered the way you answer when you've rehearsed the truth. You think you're a test, Ethan. You're a mirror. He frowned. I went on. I work wood. Push too hard and it splinters. Ignore stress and it warps. Lauren didn't invent new pressure, she revealed old curves. He shifted, sat taller, like posture could outrun meaning. So you're Okay with this? I'm not okay with disrespect, I said, but I'm done negotiating with it. He nodded like he'd found purchase, then lost it. I'm not here to measure myself against you, I added. I'm here to mark a line. He glanced at the door, at the watch, at the room doing what rooms do. Continue. You're not my competition, Ethan, I said, letting it land. You're clarity. The jukebox changed tracks. He didn't. That's when the wobble started. I let the silence stretch until it belonged to both of us. Lauren asked for one night, I said. But one night isn't one. It's a story with prequels and sequels. He snorted, reflexive. You don't know her. 8 years, I said. I know her rhythms. The just once when she wants a habit. The I'm fine when she wants a fight. People don't order a sampler platter when they already picked a favorite restaurant. He stared at the mirror like it might give him a second face. This isn't an attack, I added. It's physics. Momentum matters. Call it grain, call it gravity. He tried to laugh and found the sound thin. You saying I'm a mistake? I'm saying you're a milestone, I said. And those don't move backward. His eyes flicked to his phone, searching for a text to tell him who he was. Nothing arrived. One night? I finished softly. She doesn't collect nights, Ethan. She collects upgrades. He didn't answer. He breathed. That's different. The showman slipped, and a man took the stool. He looked down at that shiny watch like it might explain time better than the clock on the wall. She told me you two agreed, he said. She told me you understood. I nodded. She tells people what they need to hear to keep the play running. He licked his bottom lip, a tell I'd seen in men deciding whether to fold. I've been at tables where the smart move is admitting you didn't see the curve coming. He checked his phone. 3 dots blinked, became nothing. Sometimes the absence says more than the message. You're calm, he said finally. Because I'm done pretending calm is weak, I answered. It's a lever. You can lift a house with the right one. He sat back, shoulders loosening, certainty draining. In a bar full of noise, the loudest thing was the question he didn't want to ask. I answered it anyway. You think you're her adventure, I said. You're her exit strategy. He flinched, like the word had edges. She's not cruel, he offered. She's searching. Maybe, I said. But she's also packing a parachute. She told friends I won't push back. She told you I'd sign off. She's building 2 bridges and deciding which one photographs better. He stared at the bottles, each label a sermon about flavor that wasn't in the glass. You're saying she'd leave. I'm saying she already did, I said. The body keeps time. The heart keeps score. He tried a new defense. She said you were unhappy. I was asleep, I said. There's a difference. Truth can be gentle and still cut. His face lost the showroom shine. Under the lighting, he looked like a young man who'd read a lot about consequences and never met one up close. That introduction was happening now, and my hands were clean. He asked, small for the first time, So what am I? A man, I said, in over his head because someone told him the water was warm. He winced. I didn't sign up to break anything. Nobody ever does, I said. People sign up to feel wanted, then find out the terms. He rubbed his temple, watch flashing an SOS that no one answered. She said it was just physical, he muttered, as if saying it quiet would keep it true. Physical becomes schedule, I said. Schedule becomes pressure. He closed his eyes. The jukebox hit a chorus about leaving and meaning it this time. He looked older when he opened them, which is not the worst thing that can happen to a man. What would you do? He asked. If you were me. I finished my beer and set it down slow. I'd decide before someone else decides for me. The word temporary tasted like rust between us. He finally heard it. I stood, left a cash tip, and slid my empty toward the bartender. I'm not here to hurt you, I told him, but I won't cushion your landing either. He nodded once, grateful and miserable, a combination you don't forget. You leaving? He asked. For now, I said. Think on what story you're in, and how it ends. He looked like a man suddenly aware of exits. I walked past the pool table, past the door that breathes, into air that smelled like rain. On the sidewalk, the night had a hum you can only hear after you turn down your own volume. I didn't text Lauren. I didn't call Tommy. I didn't narrate victory to anyone. Seeds don't sprout because you yell at them. They sprout because you planted them where they belong. I slid into the truck, watched my breath fog the windshield, and waited for it to clear. Doubt had entered the bar. My work tonight was done. Let it grow. Saturday morning, I went for coffee and ran into Mrs. Dorsey at the produce stand. She inspects tomatoes like diamonds, holds them to the light, turns them, rejects the braggers. "Jack, honey," she said, squeezing my elbow. "How are you holding up?" Small towns don't ask if something happened. They ask how you're holding up. I told her we were sorting things. She leaned in, voice dropping to that porch swing register. "Saw Lauren downtown with a tall fellow last week. Electric car, handsy." She watched my face like it was news on TV. I nodded once. "Explains a lot." Her eyes widened, then softened. "You're a good man," she said. "Good men get through." She placed 2 tomatoes in my bag like she was packing hope. "If you need anything, I bake on Sundays." People mock gossip, but sometimes it's a community checking your pulse. I thanked her and paid. In the parking lot, 1 tomato split in my hand. The juice told the story. By afternoon, the deli guy sliced my usual and cleared his throat. "Heard Lauren's been stepping out," he said, like reading a weather report. I didn't deny or perform. "We're figuring it out," I answered. He nodded, wrapped the meat neat, double paper, extra care. At the hardware store, a clerk I barely know asked whether I still needed decking screws for spring. Translation: "Are you staying?" On my street, a neighbor walking her terrier paused long enough to say, "If you ever need someone to watch the house." People think small towns thrive on scandal. We don't. We keep ledgers. Who showed up, who ran, who told the truth when it got expensive. Lauren had chosen a public storyline. Public stories invite public math. None of this required me to raise my voice. It required me to be visible, steady, and available for questions I didn't have to answer. The ledger wasn't mine to write, but I knew how to read it. I set a rule: no speeches. Silence can look weak to people who confuse noise with power. Older men I respect taught me otherwise. The best fisherman in town says more fish are caught by patience than by bait. My father settled disputes by standing there longer than the other guy wanted to. So I mowed the lawn, tuned the truck, oiled the door that squeaked. I showed up at church and sat in our usual pew, even when the empty seat next to me tried to preach. When people asked, I said, "Working on it," and left space for them to fill with whatever made sense. You don't argue with rumor, you outlast it. The phone buzzed less. The house creaked the same. The rocking chair waited in the garage like a question with no hurry. This isn't passivity, it's posture. I kept my back straight and my answers short. Pressure builds, valves hold. And then, when the moment comes, you turn them. By Sunday evening, Lauren called. "We need to talk, in person." Her voice was hoarse from crying or acting, hard to tell over a cell tower. I looked at the calendar, at the folder in the drawer, at the way the light fell across the floorboards I'd laid with my own hands. "Not tonight," I said. She went quiet, then came back sharp. "You're being childish." There's a trick in that word. It tries to put you on trial for not fixing what you didn't break. "No," I said. "I'm being careful." She asked if there was someone else. That's a script people reach for when their own pages burn. "There's a plan," I answered. "That's all." She pressed for details, for an opening, for the old me who folded. I let the silence work. Finally she sighed, said she'd text, said she'd stop by. "Don't," I said. "Not without notice." I ended the call and set the phone down. Some doors you close gently and lock. Monday afternoon, I met Ethan at a downtown coffee shop that sells muffins like they're antiques. He looked smaller without bar light and noise, eyes red, shirt wrinkled, the watch still shining like it didn't get the memo. We sat by the window where Main Street does its slow parade, mail truck, school bus, a guy walking a stubborn beagle. He tried to smile and missed. "Thanks for coming," he said. I stirred my coffee I didn't need because hands like to work while the truth arrives. You said you had questions, I told him. He nodded. About her, about me. The barista announced oat milk latte like it was good news for someone else. He took a breath and lost it halfway through. People our age talk around pain. Young men still try to outrun it. He wasn't outrunning anything today. She's different since you left, he said. Clingy, planning, talking about moving in. He looked scared. Good. Fear can tell the truth that pride won't. Ethan kept going like a faucet finally fixed. She brings up marriage, he said. Kids. Timelines. He rubbed his eyes with his thumb and first knuckle, the way men do when they'd rather be anywhere else. I thought this was fun. The word sounded cheap out loud. I let him sit in it a second. Fun turns into planning if you let it, I said. Planning turns into pressure. He nodded like he'd just found the bruise under the skin. She texts every hour, checks my location, gets mad when I don't answer. He looked around the room as if he'd see permission on a chalkboard. I didn't sign up for this. I thought about all the men I know who didn't sign up for broken things but fixed them anyway. You can sign up for a new decision, I said. He swallowed. I don't want to be the bad guy. You're not, I told him. You're the guy who finally reads the instructions. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, like a boy who'd lost his homework. If I end it, she'll torch me, he said. Social, friends, work. She knows people. That's the thing about small towns and slick towns alike. Both run on reputations, just different fonts. I sipped the coffee, let it sit bitter, and set the cup down clean. Then don't give her a fire to build, I said. Give her a truth she can't spin. He blinked. What does that mean? It means you tell her what you want, not what she trained you to say. He waited for me to sell him a shortcut. I didn't. Say it plain, I added. You thought it was temporary. You're not moving in. You're not getting married. You're done. His hands shook, the watch ticking like a metronome for the scared. She'll cry, he said. Probably, I answered. Then she'll threaten. I let the next line land like a tool in a palm. And then she'll learn. I laid out the shape. You call her. Ask to meet tonight. A place with space, but not a stage. The lake overlook does fine. He frowned. Why there? Because she'll think it's romantic, I said. People hear what they want while you say what you mean. He stared at the traffic light stuck on red like it needed permission to change. Why are you helping me? My father used to answer good questions with better ones. I tried that on. Do you want to be free, Ethan? He hesitated, which is honest. Yes. Then I'm helping both of us, I said. She pushed us into a story. We're writing the last page. He sat back, breathing steadier. What do I say? The truth, I answered. What do I do when she holds your sleeve, promises, threatens? I shrugged. Don't break character. We let the facts talk. He stared at his reflection in the window, then at me. Okay, he said. Call her. I stepped outside and called Tommy. He answered on the second ring like men do when they know something's burning. Need a hand, I said. Lake overlook, 8, quiet presence. He grunted agreement. You want me visible? Not unless needed, I said. This isn't a fight, it's a reveal. He liked that word. You got your folder? And a clean shirt, I said. This isn't about scaring her. It's about stopping the lie. He breathed out a laugh. You always did explain better than you shouted. Back inside, Ethan stared at his phone like it owed him courage. Just read the lines you wrote for your own life, I told him. He nodded, dialed, put it on speaker. Lauren answered bright, too bright. I knew you'd call, she said. He delivered it smooth. Tonight, 8, the lake. She inhaled, audible. I'm ready, she whispered. Me too, he said, and for once meant something different. We ended the call. The plan had a time and a place. The overlook is where teenagers kiss and adults remember they used to. It has just enough light to feel safe and just enough shadow to tell the truth. I parked the truck behind a stand of trees. Ethan arrived early, nervous energy ticking. "You sure?" he asked. "I'm sure," I said. "Stand your ground. No speeches, simple sentences." Tommy texted he was nearby, out of sight, a quiet anchor. The lake breathed that cold that climbs your sleeves. I rehearsed my lines without moving my lips. Not revenge, not rage, not a story for the neighbors. Just the facts, just the boundary. Headlights crested the hill at 7:58. The car idled, then eased into a space like it had practiced. "Remember," I told Ethan, "this is your decision, not a debate." He nodded, took one last look at the shape of his life so far, and stepped into the scene he'd helped create. Between the trees, I watched the stage I hadn't chosen but would finish. Lauren stepped out in a dress I'd never seen, the kind that makes receipts disappear. Heels clicked too loud for gravel. She hugged Ethan before he was ready and kissed him like the audience had paid extra. "I knew it," she said into his collar. "I knew you'd come around." He stood stiff, then gently set her back at arm's length. The moon did that work it does, kind to the face, cruel to the truth. "We need to talk," he said. There it was again, those 4 words, just from a different mouth. She smiled wide, mistaking the sound for a ring. "About our future?" she asked. He nodded once. "Yes, about what I want." Her eyes shone. Hope is loud when it's lying. He didn't look toward the trees. He didn't check his phone. He just breathed the way I told him to, like a man lifting a board he measured twice. Then he started with the simplest sentence he owned. "I'm not moving in." Her smile cracked, a hairline at first, then a fault. "What?" she asked, still soft, still performing for a crowd that wasn't there. "I'm not moving in," he said again, 3 clean words, no decorations. "I'm not ready for marriage. I'm not ready for kids. I thought this was temporary." She blinked, slow, then fast. "Temporary?" she echoed, like the word was a stain that wouldn't lift. "We love each other." He didn't repeat it. "We had fun," he said, and there it was, the rearranged truth. She glanced around the lot as if a booth might sell her a new ending. "He put you up to this," she snapped, and the "he" tasted like my name. "No," Ethan answered. "You did, by telling 2 different stories to 2 different men." She laughed without humor. "You don't know him," she said. "He'll forgive me." He shook his head. "He already did, by letting you go." The line landed. Something inside her did too. I walked out from the trees like a man entering his own house. Lauren turned, and whatever color she had left washed out quick. "Jack," she said, and my name sounded like a dropped plate. "Evening," I answered. No heat, no ice, just weather. Ethan stood his ground, eyes on me, then back on her, like a student checking the board. "You planned this," she whispered, accusation hunting a target. "I planned to tell the truth," I said. "You planned the rest." The lake popped against the rocks like it agreed. She straightened, tried for queenly. "You have no right." "No, I have every right," I said. "You asked for a night. You brought a plan. I brought daylight." She looked toward the road as if it could rewrite. "We can talk, privately," she said. "We are," I answered. "We always were. You just added an audience when you invited a town into our marriage." And then I set the folder on the hood. I opened the manila folder like a foreman opening a punch list. "Hotel confirmations," I said, handing her copies. "Menu reservations, messages with Ethan, messages with Brittany." Each page made a sound when it left the stack, a small, flat truth. "You went through my things," she hissed. "I went through ours," I said. "Joint property, remember?" She snatched a page and scanned, hunting for a loophole in her own handwriting. "You don't understand," she tried. "I didn't mean—" "You meant it then," I said. "Now you mean something else. Meanings change. Records don't." She tossed the papers like they were hot and burned her fingers. The wind chased one and pinned it to the gravel. Ethan bent, picked it up, and read the line about exit strategy, like it was the first time he'd seen his own name in a foreign language. He folded it once and tucked it into his pocket. "I'm done," he said softly. It was quiet enough to count. Ethan faced her and didn't blink. I don't want to be your stepping stone, he said. Simple words, heavy work. I'm not your upgrade path. I'm not your alibi. She reached for his wrist, watch flashing, a little lighthouse for lost causes. He stepped back. Don't, he said, and the word had a spine. I thought this was something else. She tried a smile that had moved product before. It can be, she said. We can fix. No, he cut in, nearly kind. Fixing is what honest people do with honest problems. He nodded at the papers. This isn't that. He looked at me like a man handing back borrowed tools. Jack, he said, I'm sorry. Me too, I answered, and meant it. He walked to his car, opened the door, and paused. Take care of yourself, he told me. Start now, I told him. He drove away without checking the mirror. Proof a man can learn something in one hard night. When the taillights disappeared, Lauren's shoulders collapsed, then shook, then stilled. Tears came, big and photogenic, the kind that had worked on me before. She stepped closer, voice softened to a pleading church whisper. Jack, please. We can undo this. We can go to counseling. We can start fresh. I looked at the gravel between us because it doesn't lie. You can't unfry an egg, I said. You can't unread words you wrote. She reached for my sleeve. I let her hand hang in the air without catching it. I was scared, she said. I felt trapped. Fear is real, so are choices. You didn't come to me with fear, I answered. You came with terms. She shook her head like it might loosen the past. I love you, she tried. You loved a version of me that didn't ask you to stop, I said. The wind carried lake chill between us. She wiped her face and squared her shoulders again. Hope changed masks. I gave you the rule clear, I said. If you close that hotel door, the marriage ends when the latch clicks. She sniffed, angry now. I didn't go, she said. I stayed at my parents'. Truth is funny. It can be used like a shield after it fails as a sword. You planned to go, I said. You planned the cover, the story, the cleanup. She opened her palms like a dealer showing empty hands. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said, and felt how light that word can be. That's the point. She blinked. So it's just over? It ended the night you asked me to co-sign your conscience, I said. Tonight is the part where we stop pretending. The lake kept breathing. A nightbird called once and quit. You're cold, she accused. I'm clear, I said. There's a difference. She bit her lip and tasted anger. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said. But I won't regret knowing who I am. Her composure came back sharp, like a knife pulled from a drawer. I'll hire the best, she said. I'll take the house, your business, alimony, emotional distress. She listed claims like menu items, confident the kitchen could cook anything. Janet Pierce eats men like you for breakfast, she added, a name meant to scare. I thought of Tommy in the dark and Martha's candle in the kitchen. I thought of fences that keep promises in. Hire who you need, I said. Ask for what you want. She stepped closer, chin high. You think you're ready for a fight? I think I'm done being your sparring partner, I said. You trained for sympathy. I trained for finish work. She laughed once, short. You don't know how this game is played. I don't play games, I said. I build endings. The clouds shifted and the moon went cleaner. She waited for me to blink. I didn't. That made her madder than any insult could. Before you spend your retainer, I said, check your inbox. She frowned, pulled out her phone, and swiped like a gambler who needs one card. I kept my voice even. I forwarded some of our correspondence to Janet. Her thumb froze. Attorney-client privilege? Applies to attorneys who don't have to report clients planning perjury, I said, or hiding assets, or inventing distress. She scrolled, read, went white around the mouth. The wind turned a page on the hood and left it there. She looked up, eyes wet, rage cooling to something like reality. You can't do this to me, she whispered. I didn't, I said. You did. I'm just turning on the lights. The phone shook in her hand and then stilled. The dress that had looked like armor became costume. She sat on the bumper and stared at the gravel until it stared back. Somewhere behind us, Tommy's truck engine turned once and quieted. I closed the folder. The night had done its work. Lauren didn't leave right away. She sank onto the bumper and stared through me, then past me, then down at the phone that had stopped answering. When she finally stood, her voice had no costume left. She asked for a ride. I shook my head and pointed to the porch light at her parents' place in the distance. We waited while she called a cab that never came. Tommy idled close enough for safety, far enough for privacy. When she walked to his headlights, she paused. "Is there anything I can say?" she asked. "Only goodbye," I said. She nodded, wiped her face with the heel of her hand, and got in. Back home, I gathered what she'd left behind. The perfume, a sweater, a box of notes from our better days. I set them by the door with the spare key. In the morning, they were gone. The ring hook felt lighter. So did the house. That was enough. Ethan texted the next day, a single line that read, "I'm sorry." I believed him, not because he earned it, but because remorse had a voice. By Wednesday, the Tesla was gone from his spot behind the apartments. O'Malley's said he stopped coming in. The coffee shop said he closed his tab. Someone said Seattle. Towns file notices in conversation. I kept my answers short. When you return a borrowed tool, you wipe it clean first. He called once and I picked up. He asked how you live with shame. I told him you don't. You live with choices, one better than the last. He thanked me for not breaking his nose. I told him I'd rather build something useful. Before we hung up, he asked if I thought Lauren would be okay. I said people survive what they create. After the line went dead, I set my phone down and listened to the house breathe. Quiet means you're healing. The papers moved faster than I expected. Her attorney sent demands like grocery lists, the house, my shop tools, monthly checks for pain. Tom Bradley, the gray-haired lawyer who handled my father's estate, read every line twice and circled the parts that pretended to be mercy. We answered with numbers, not noise. I offered fair. Half the equity, her car, no alimony either way. She pushed back with adjectives. Courts don't weigh adjectives. They weigh proof. The folder did its work. The emails about hiding assets, the drafts about acting distressed, the timelines that didn't match. Ink won. On hearing day, the judge peered over glasses and asked 3 quiet questions that stripped the paint. Lauren looked tired. I looked finished. We signed. Pens clicked like triggers you choose not to pull. Outside, October air bit. Tom shook my hand and told me to go eat something warm. I did. And for the first time in months, it tasted like food. I didn't stay in the house. I sold my half, took my tools, and rented a cabin near the state park where the trees forget your name. Mornings started with coffee on the step and a list written with a carpenter's pencil. Estimates, pickups, 2 porch repairs, 1 kitchen to reface. The phone rang with work from people who'd watched me show up. Older clients paid in stories and checks that cleared. I finished the rocking chair and gave it to Martha, who cried in that quiet way mothers do when wood holds more than weight. Evenings, I ran a hand over grain and let the lake wind sand the edges off my thoughts. Some nights I missed what we almost built. Most nights I didn't. Peace isn't loud. It's a truck that starts, a meal that tastes like food, a bed that forgives you. One night she wanted a fantasy. I chose a life. Window stayed open. I slept. Looking back, I don't hear shouting. I hear doors clicking, boundaries closing, and a new one opening. She asked for one night to feel alive. What she got was a lesson you don't forget. Never mistake a quiet husband for a weak one. I lost a marriage, but I kept my word, and I found the man who made it. That's the kind of win you don't frame. You live it. These days, coffee tastes like coffee. The truck starts. Work is honest. I measure twice, cut once, and don't bargain with my piece. If you're listening from your kitchen, staring at a photo that doesn't match your life, hear this. You're allowed to choose yourself without breaking what can't be fixed. Pick your lane, pick your fence, and keep it straight. If this hit home, type respect or rebuild. Tell me which path you're on, because endings aren't the point. What you build after is. And that story starts here.